Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Advertising Council Australia would like to begin by acknowledging and paying our respects to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are our traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast today. Advertising Council Australia would also like to acknowledge their culture of storytelling through art, dance and music, and we pay respect to their elders, past, present and future on their lands, on other lands throughout all communities who might be participating today. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Work Behind the Work, the first of two sessions where we will learn about the inspiration, creativity, ways of working and relationships that lead to the most effective work in our industry. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And a big thank you in particular to Steve Weaver of Think TV, Rob Brittain of Robert Brittain Consulting, King of Hap and Kelly Box from BMF, and everyone who's joined today. A few bits of housekeeping. This session will be recorded and made available online. And during the presentation, we would ask that you please add questions in the Q&A box and hopefully we'll have lots of time for some interesting discussion at the end. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Steve Weaver, Director of Research, Insights and Education at Think TV, one of Australia's leading experts in media analysis and research. Over to you, Steve.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here today, and welcome to Work Behind the Work. My name is Steve Weaver. I'm the head of research for the Premium Content Alliance and Think TV. And I'd have to say that we are such a proud sponsor of the Effies. It's a relationship that we value so highly. In many respects, the work that we do mirrors the work that the Effies do. We have this core focus, which is to focus on effectiveness in advertising, because it's only with effective advertising that you get true, genuine business results. So with this in mind, we've partnered with Rob Brittain and helped fund the analysis of the Effies database and some of these amazing reports that have been coming out of over the last 12 months or so. He works really closely with Peter Field and obviously Les Binet, which this particular part of the industry know extraordinarily well and follow religiously. So we're hopeful that the ongoing work that Rob does is of continuing benefit to us all. So I'm going to hand you over to Rob. He has presented to a lot of us before, 15 or so years working in the industry. He's well known around the place, working quite closely with Peter now on some of this work around effectiveness. Prior to that, he was with Mondelez and ANZ, but now he's absolutely the go-to person in terms of understanding effectiveness in advertising. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Rob. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Steve, and hi, everyone, and welcome to the sneak peek of the 2021 edition of Australian Advertising Effectiveness Rules. Peter Field and I are buddying up again, and today I'm going to talk through a couple of snippets from the paper. We're in the middle of writing it at the moment, so it's definitely a sneak peek. Now, in our first paper in 2019, we looked at the question, does this apply here? And we investigated whether core marketing effectiveness principles applied here in Australia. And the weight of evidence from the Effies database was overwhelming that they do. We then followed that up with a paper in June this year, and that was about winning or losing in a recession. And in that paper, we put forward the case that there would be a fast recovery and that the recession presented an opportunity to leap ahead for those who are able and willing to keep investing in advertising, because it would position them to make the most of the recovery, which we saw happening pretty soon. And that was back in June when things were pretty bad. The news yesterday is that we're now out of recession. So the paper that I'm going to be talking about today continues on the theme. So to get things started, we're going to kick off with a quick poll. So you're going to have a poll pop up on your screen. And so just get ready to click your response in a sec. Okay, could you launch the first poll, please? Okay, so our question is how do you think the Australian economy will perform in 2021? So, do you think it's going to be a strong rebound? Do you think it's going to be pretty much a return back to the average, back to the pre-COVID level? Or you think it's going to be lower than normal? All right, I'm just going to leave that up for another 10 seconds or so. There we go, still just, okay. Could you publish the results, please? Okay, so we can see from this that actually the pessimists still outweigh the optimists. So we've got nearly half of the people on this webinar saying that they believe that growth is going to be lower than normal post-COVID. And the reason why I'm asking this is, it's an indicator of confidence. We know that the road ahead is going to be bumpy, and we'll know that we've really turned the corner when business investment starts to charge forwards. Businesses are run by people, and people don't invest unless they're confident. Okay, so I'll take that down. Okay, so there's a famous quote, and that says, "Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat the same mistakes." And Peter and I, we still remain unashamedly optimistic and confident about the future. And we do that because history tells us we should be. The COVID recession was huge, and it was a rapid downturn. But history tells us that the bigger the downturn, the bigger the recovery. Now, the GDP figures for the last quarter that were announced yesterday, it was 3.3% GDP growth. That was our strongest growth, quarterly growth, in 50 years. So Australia's digging itself out of its hole much faster than anyone had anticipated. And there's a lot of language coming from the RBA and the rest about the fact that their estimates were too pessimistic to start with. So we believe there's a very big recovery out there, and it's coming. We're starting to see the beginnings of it already. So the question we should all be asking ourselves is, how do we make the most of the recovery? And this really sits very much with the things that Peter and I published together. Now, our publications are all about how best to use advertising to drive growth, whether it's during normal times or whether it's during recessions. So the focus of our next paper is going to be share of voice. Now, before we get into this, I'm going to run another quick poll. So I'm going to ask the lovely people in the background to get ready. And could you publish the next poll, please? Okay, so the question is, are you aware of share of voice? Do you really know anything about it? And do you use it? Do you or your clients use it? All right, so we've just got some responses starting to come in. I'm going to give it about another 10 seconds or so to make sure that we get enough responses, and then we'll publish. Okay, could you publish the results, please? All right, well, to be honest, I really wasn't expecting this, because my experience is that share of voice is woefully underutilized in the market. But obviously we've got a very educated audience here, and the majority, about half of you, are saying you're aware of it and it's used in your marketing planning. And then you've got around the other half saying either they're not aware of it or they don't use it at all. Okay, so going on from there. Cool. So share of voice is a really important core advertising planning principle. And it was firstly put forward by John Philip Jones in the 90s. So it's been around for quite a long time. And it's basically a measure of a brand's advertising intensity relative to its competitors. So basically, that share of voice is your share of category advertising spend. But what takes it from being an interesting data point to a valuable planning tool is when we go a step further and look at excess share of voice. So excess share of voice, or ESOV, is basically your share of voice minus your share of market. And it can be positive or negative. And it's valuable because brands with a positive ESOV are much more likely to gain market share. And this is because the intensity of their advertising is high relative to their size. Now, ESOV is a much more effective metric in setting marketing budgets. And the one that's typically used is marketing as a percentage of revenue. But the thing with ESOV is it takes into account the category context. it's comparable across categories as well, because everything's weighted back and relative to that category context. So you actually understand, rather than looking from an internal perspective, how much do I spend on it? You're actually looking at, okay, well, essentially, how much am I doing and what is that relative to my competitors? And so for those of you who are able to maintain your advertising spend during the recession, it's likely that your ESOV will have increased because advertising spend in your category will have declined. Now, if we go into the Effies data, we'll look at a couple of snippets, and we see the same patterns in the Effies database. And this, first of all, is looking at brands that stated that they've increased their ESOV. And what we see amongst those is, so the ones that increase their intensity relative to their competitors do see higher market share changes. But where this paper will build further on what's already known about ESOV, so it's not just covering ground that's already there, we're going to expand the knowledge around it, is we're going to be reporting on the effects of ESOV on business metrics beyond market share. And I'm going to share with you one more insight from the report, and it's a big one. So first of all, we tend to think about the business effects of advertising only in the context of growth. And that comes from either market expansion or increased penetration. And when we talk about metrics such as market share, new customer acquisition, sales response, these are all in that growth camp on the left-hand side. But delivering shareholder value is a blend of growth, but also managing cash and margin. And pricing effects are rarely reported. I don't know whether it's the fact that they're not looked at, or the fact that they're just not really seen, or maybe that they're just not looked for. But they're clearly driven by the strength of a brand. And the ability to raise prices is extremely powerful and has a huge impact on the profitability of a brand. And what we see in the data is that excess share of voice and pricing sensitivity, they're linked. So brands that invest in a positive excess share of voice, so that high intensity, they're much more likely to have a lower price sensitivity. So advertising plays its role in increasing the pricing power of a brand. It all comes back to the strength of a brand. A stronger brand has more pricing power, which means customers are willing to pay more for it. And that helps in a couple of ways. It helps de-risk any potential price increases that may be going through. And it can also change the approach to promotional activity. And brands in this situation can deliver growth as well as increases in percentage growth margin. And CFOs love this. So the role of a CFO is to manage the value of a business, and brands with pricing power make the business more valuable. Okay, so that's all for now. It's been a brief snippet. There's going to be plenty more coming in the report, which will be available early next year. And now I'll hand back to Steve.
Thanks, Rob. I hope everyone found that little snippet interesting. We'll look forward to that report early next year. We're now going to hand you over to some very, very talented people over at BMF, always in the mix with regards to winning awards and Effies in particular. And this year, Grand Effie Award winner for long-term effectiveness for their famous ALDI campaign, Good Different. Pleased to introduce Kinga and Kelly, who will run you through a presentation on that particular campaign. Thanks, guys. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. My name is Kinga.
And I'm Kelly.
And we are the planners on BMF who've been responsible for putting together this Effie Award, but actually there are a lot more people behind this 3-year journey. So today we would like to take you through the story of how a German supermarket became Australia's most trusted supermarket brand. Even just based on this statement, you can imagine that it's been quite a journey, and it was driven by a long idea. And let's be honest, a long idea is always a heroic act for any brand. But in case of ALDI, this is, I think, particularly the case because ALDI is a challenger brand. It's outspent 3-1, but it's also our category is retail. So retail, the positive side of it is there's a lot of spend to go around, but at the same time it's extremely active and most notoriously very, very reactive. So what that means is that even when you're gaining some market share or you've got some good sales going on, you need to work really bloody hard to hold on to it, because your competitors are going to up their game and potentially even copy the successful strategy that got you there. So that's why the job is never done. Hence, we would like to welcome you to Aldi's never-ending hero's journey. And just like in the classic tale, also Aldi had to have a reason why to start this journey. So that was our call to adventure. There were plenty of trials, as you'll see in the next couple of minutes. But thanks to some, if I may say, powerful insights, there were some transformative moments as well, which really helped to nudge on the brand, which ended up, as a result, 3 years worth of both business, brand, as well as, I think, personal and team success. But it's just the beginning, as you'll see. So let's kind of give you the context of why Aldi had to embark on this journey. So Aldi has always been different, but for early adopters, that was actually a really good thing. It was a weird and wonderful German invention that really had street creds and an incredible following. And very soon, there was quite a lot of people in the Eastern Seaboard who considered Aldi their main supermarket. But after 15 years of category-defying growth, in the back end of 2016, penetration growth started to slow. And while this might not be so alarming, especially if you have category-defying growth, in case of a small player in a very quite aggressive market with two Goliaths ruling it, it is an issue, right? Because what that essentially signals is that unless we reach the glass ceiling, unless we actually able to create mass love for Aldi and conquer the mainstream Australia, we're going to stay a small player forever. So we needed to understand what's holding people back, especially if we have an early adopter group who are absolutely passionate about it. So what is this discrepancy really? And the more we dug into it, the more we realized that Aldi was too different for mainstream Australia, but not necessarily on face value and by because of rational reasons. So this was underpinned by a couple of things. Aldi is a very private company, so they don't like to brag about themselves. They believe in more of the doing, less talking. Therefore, as you can imagine, there wasn't much out there about them and how they do their business. And on the other side of the coin, as people, we are programmed to be scared of the unknown. And when you combine the two together, people don't know much about Aldi, and we fill the gaps with whatever we can find in our brains. So that's why they said, if you're cheap, it must mean that you have to compromise on the quality, or you're not selling Aussie products, or you're not treating your staff well enough. And we can't blame people, because they were fed a different type of diet when it came to discounts. They had pre-existing biases and assumptions what discount meant. And in their head, discount was a compromise, and nobody wants to compromise, especially those who were in much need to shop at Aldi. They didn't want to shop at Aldi. They didn't want to be seen shop at Aldi, because as one of our participants in a focus group said, and summed it up really the problem very succinctly, people shop at Aldi because they have to, not because they want to. And when we looked at our early adopters, this was not the case at all. Also, when we looked at Aldi compromising on quality and cutting quality to cut prices, that was not the case either. So this came as a very clear call for adventure. We knew we had to turn Aldi into a legitimate supermarket. So that was the only way to keep growing and then conquer also mainstream Australia. So what this insight and this research, what unlocked is to really understand that what we needed to do is reframe Aldi from a discount retailer to a supermarket with a meaningful difference. So let's see how we've done that.
So that led us, I guess, to our first big adventure with Good Different. And this is the start of 2017, we sort of set off on this path. And this transformation from taking the different, something, that's maybe bad different or just the unknown different, and actually shedding a light on how it's good different as a brand and as a company, as a supermarket. So the trial that we were facing here is, as King has said, Australians ultimately took low prices to mean low quality. Everyone knows the saying, you get what you pay for. There's a cognitive bias that low prices equals cheap and crap. right? But we know that ALDI isn't like that at all. Their entire modus operandi, their business model is built to allow Australians to access to good quality groceries, but actually for less. And they strip out all those additional costs within their business processes to pass these savings on to consumers. But obviously, well, Aussies didn't know this. They didn't know the processes that were in place that made us different, that allowed us to do this. And so this led to that kind of key insight that unlocked our first adventure, which was all around operational transparency. So we know there's been a lot of research that's been done on consumers when you sort of peel back the curtain and you peek, below the tip of the iceberg for a company, and you can see the goings on, how things are working, how they treat their staff and their employees, and how they do business. Sales increase and trust increase dramatically as well. So this was exactly the perfect means for us to sort of to launch Good Different and use it to pull back the curtain on ALDI and say, exactly what we do that is different, that enables us to have high quality groceries at low prices, which led to our transformation, right? Championing our differences from the inside out, because ALDI at the end of the day was this perfect crossover in different ideas in the category, which actually allowed us to do business a little bit differently and offer better savings to Australians as a result of that. So this first burst of our master brand campaign, Good Different, sort of launched with a bit of a vengeance, and we went on 4 different integrated campaigns in 2017, all going after some of the kind of key misconceptions that consumers had based on some research that we did around ALDI. So whether it was the fact that, we had the most satisfied shoppers in Australia, despite the fact that you actually had to return your trolley, the fact that our products are actually really high quality because we get consumers to test them themselves before they even make it onto shelves. The fact that we've got, obviously a smaller range, we've got smaller stores, but it's because of that we're able to offer significant savings to consumers because you don't spend your life in the pasta sauce aisle. Or finally, the fact that because we have exclusive brands and we control the supply chain, we could control what goes in them. So we had no artificial colours in any of our brands in the supermarket at that time, which is something that no other supermarket in Australia could claim. So it was sort of these 4 bursts rolled out across 2017. But just to give you guys a bit of a sneak peek, we'll play our trolley ad and our pasta sauce ad so you guys can have a bit of a taste of what each of these ads was about.
Feelings of love, yeah, feelings of
Australia's most satisfied customers again. Even though you need a coin for your trolley, that's Good Different.
Dad, I want to look at these.
Tomato and basil, crushed tomato and basil, diced tomato and basil, crushed tomato and fresh basil, whole tomato and basil, Italian tomato and basil, basil tomato and basil.
puree tomato.
Dad! Oh, where have you been?
Don't waste your life in the sauce aisle. Unlike other supermarkets, ALDI only stocks the best, so you save time and money. That's Good Different.
So we were quite proud, obviously, of this body of work, and particularly what it managed to turn the tide on slope as we were facing into 2017. So we actually managed to turn it around and hit our highest ever penetration levels following the end of the year, and also actually grew 13 times faster than the category as well. So it was significantly effective even in year 1, which we're very, very proud of.
And the benefits turned into a problem because this body of work became so successful indeed that our Goliath friends, Coles and Woolies, really started to pay attention to ALDI. ALDI before that was kind of growing under the radar without Coles and Woolies, paying much attention to us. But this really changed after A Good Different was launched. And what this resulted in is that they came after us with a vengeance, and they targeted us where they knew it's going to hurt the most. They went after our low prices. So how it manifested itself is that Woolies invested $1 billion to lowering their prices. This started around 2017, so it obviously takes a bit of time for that to take effect. But in 2018, they launched Getting Your Woolies Worth, which is their overarching campaign, which serves as an umbrella for all their price communication. While on this side, Woolies was attacking really hard on price, which was very unlike them because they are the quality player of the category. We had Coles who were shouting about down and have flooded the market with half price discounts. This is completely unheard of in the sense that we were significantly always cheaper, and therefore we're able to grow really fast. And what helped us, and that's what caused the confusion a little bit, I think, in our camps, of we were able to offer very significantly lower savings for our shoppers. But then why did shoppers really gravitate towards, specials and loyalty points? And some research really helped us unlock this, because what we understood, that even though ALDI was offering this significantly higher savings, it was invisible. It was intangible, because it was already built in our everyday low prices. Versus when it came to bonus points, for example, reward schemes, one of our shoppers said, it's bonus money, it's my money, right? It doesn't go into my savings account or in my checkings account, because that's real money. I have to be accounted for. I might be questioned on that, but this is free money that I get from nowhere. And specials, on the other hand, that was also a very interesting phenomenon, because you could see the original price, which served as an anchor point. Therefore, if you could get that half price, it really gave you the sense of, I'm getting a good deal. But also, let's not forget, what specials are really great at is creating that dopamine hit, which is essentially the same as gambling, right? It's getting you high on seemingly savings. But what we wanted to highlight to enlighten shoppers, because we knew that this was not the case. Loyalty points and specials were acting as saving facades. They actually made you spend more, so much more indeed, that when it came to specials, half price specials, we saw that every single of our customers overspend their budget just because something was on special. So how we drew attention to this is by really exaggerating the power and the risks of stockpiling. This was obviously before COVID, so it was not tone deaf at all. But we really wanted to highlight that you're spending more money, you're buying things that you don't need at all, and that's not good budgeting. On the other side of the coin, loyalty was a really interesting phenomenon, and people were latching onto it and believing it like gospel. So what we needed to do with these, in both of these integrated brand campaigns, is to challenge the false messiahs, to enlighten shoppers, because this is who we are. We stand for lowest prices, and we want everybody to be able to live a richer life for less. But that's not possible if you have to spend $2,000 to get a $10 back. So let's see how we've done that with loyalty, and how we debunked this myth of pointless points.
Australians are addicted to loyalty points.
Flybys, scan that flybys.
But the big supermarkets have a dirty little secret. Their loyalty points are almost pointless. ALDI are different. They don't have a loyalty scheme. They just offer the lowest prices all the time. So we wanted to set the record straight. You don't need a loyalty scheme to save money. We started by creating the points calculator, combining supermarket spend data with loyalty scheme rewards to prove just how pointless their points really were. Then we exposed the nation to the ugly truth.
Member 77531, you have been loyal for many moons and earned thousands of points. To commemorate this joyous occasion, we present to you this plastic card.
Don't get sucked in by pointless points. Switch to ALDI and save money instead.
And we struck a nerve.
Supermarket loyalty schemes might promise you the world, but the actual rewards can seem few and far between. Is it time to ditch the plastic fantastic?
So when the inevitable haters got talking, we called them out on Facebook. And when they defended the big supermarkets, we turned up at their stores. And how did our competitors respond? With their biggest points giveaway ever.
$1.4 million, that's right. $1.4 million worth of Qantas flight vouchers.
So we kept sending people to the points calculator, and people kept coming. And that's how we taught a nation of card-carrying, points-loving Australians there's a different way to save.
73 years for a laptop, wow.
This body of work actually propelled all of our business factories, and the most important one that we're always looking at is sales per store. So this body of work and really reacting to our competitors, what it resulted in is that they started reacting to us. So this was absolutely unheard of before, because we were a very small player. But what you can see, they, as a response, they put on their Give Us the biggest ever giveaway. So it clearly struck a nerve, and it resonated really well with consumers as well.
So that led us to our third adventure. We've challenged the competition. We're in 2019 by about now. And our next sort of adventure was actually moving towards challenging ourselves and challenging some assumptions that a couple of our shoppers, or quite a large number of our shoppers, had about ALDI and sort of how ALDI fit into their shopping routine. And what we knew at this point, just go to the next slide, is that the problem that we were really facing that was our biggest next barrier to becoming a legitimate supermarket was around winning the fresh shop, the fresh proportion of the shop. We know that fresh is disproportionately important for a grocery shop. It makes up 60% of people's baskets. It's one of the main things that people buy when they go grocery shopping. And what we actually found was that sort of past poor experiences of, ALDI from several years ago around our fresh meat and produce and vegetables was actually stopping some of our existing shoppers from doing fuller and fresher shops at ALDI. We didn't just have lovers and haters anymore. We had people who were shopping with us in halves and thirds and 3/4, but not just quite getting to that full main shop where they're committed to doing all of their grocery shopping at ALDI. And so despite the fact that ALDI had actually significantly upped their fresh game, invested a lot of money in refurbishing stores, in their buying processes, and we knew that shoppers that were buying fresh were really, really happy with it, there was just this huge proportion of shoppers that weren't willing to give it another go. And what it came down to when we did some consumer insight work through some research that we did was that ultimately we learned that Coles and Woolworths kind of had 9 lives when it came to fresh, but we had to fight tooth and nail for every single one. So a bad experience with a fresh item at Colesworth was actually just put down to bad luck. I'd chosen the wrong avocado, or it was just a bad batch. Whereas a poor experience at ALDI on fresh was ALDI's fault. It just confirmed their suspicions that it was poor quality, that it wasn't Australian, that it wasn't fresh, and it actually stopped them from shopping fresh with us, which led on to them stopping shopping with us in its entirety in some places, which is pretty scary. So what that meant for us was we needed to tackle this head on. And our transformation ultimately was around proof. We knew we were really, really confident in the quality of the fresh produce and meat at ALDI. We just needed to convince our shoppers of this. So we convinced, one of our biggest haters, Sarah, to give us another go. So I'll just show you guys the case study so you can see how that work unfolded.
Aldi's fresh produce is the flippin' worst. At least that's what Aussies shouted on social media. So how'd we prove to millions of haters our fresh produce had vastly improved? We set our sights and entire budget on one hater, Sarah, and her one online comment. Ouch. We called it the Campaign for One. Our elaborate plan started with convincing Sarah to be interviewed. She thought it was a study about supermarkets. And boy, did she have a lot to say about that.
I will not go in there. I won't even hold an ALDI bag anymore.
All the while, we infiltrated her life, undercover style. We replaced all the food in her fridge with ALDI, crumbs and all. We did the same at her favourite restaurants, food trucks, hairdresser and smoothie joint, with the help of all her family and friends.
This is really good.
Even her mum. Once we knew we had a shot at getting her back, we did a few less covert stunts to convince her, like surprised her with giant billboards. Put her husband on the radio.
Hey Sarah, it's your husband Poe.
And swamped her social feeds, with ALDI lovers everywhere joining the mission. We even got her fave celeb to do a TV ad just for her.
Sarah, hello, it's Dicko.
Oh, it's Dicko!
And because Sarah said
it might take a marching band to get me into ALDI,
we did just that. And then it was finally time to reveal all to Sarah.
When did that happen? Oh my God. Everything I've eaten over the last week has been amazing. I'm going there now. I'm going there right now.
Our Campaign for One was shared with Australia in weekly episodes, targeting ALDI haters. By proving to Sarah we've upped our fresh game, we proved it to the rest of Australia. So go on, award show judges, give ALDI another go.
I think, what is particularly strong about this piece of work is that it's a perfect example of ALDI's bravery as a client, right? It takes one brave client to challenge the competition, but a particularly brave client to challenge themselves and actually take a detractor, put her on air and leave it to chance to see what happens, to see if she actually ends up embracing the product and leans into it. And we all know that one of the best ways that you can actually reverse detraction is actually to lean in, to hug your haters, which is exactly what we did with Sarah. And the wave of advocacy that then created off the back of the detractor becoming an advocate was incredible. The rest of Australia getting on board and trying to convince their friends to, convince a friend to give it another go. So this work, it obviously created that wave, changed the conversation around fresh at ALDI, but also led to a significant increase in the gap between our fresh quality perceptions and Coles and Woolworths, and also some pretty decent sales results as well, which ALDI were pretty happy with.
So everything based on, this story, this all seems just very easy, free-flowing, everything is wonderful, just keeping in this on clouds, well, until it wasn't, right? So things were going really well until they weren't. And we all know we don't have to introduce March 2020. I think it burned into everybody's memory globally. So yeah, COVID-19, which had a massive impact on everybody's lives. But in our case, also specifically on retail, it delivered a variety of challenges. So first and foremost, we had to deal with panic buying, which people were hoarding. That's the only way how we can say it. And even though the Prime Minister went on national television and tried to and begged Aussies to stop it because it's not Australian, it caused massive operational challenges for all retailers, big and small, in Australia. Secondly, we had to defend ALDI's market share. So as we said, ALDI is normally outspent 3-1. In this particular time period, we were outspent even more significantly because both Coles and Woolies upped their marketing budget by an extortionate amount. And last but not least, if this wasn't enough, we had to write 4 Effie case studies. So this was almost like the cherry on the top of the cake, all while working from home. And as we all know, it has a lot of working from home is great. It has a lot of benefits, but it also has plenty of challenges when you have to try to do all of this within the 4 walls with your kids and your partner, and us being on the phone to each other like 6 hours a day. But and this all sounds quite crazy, and to be honest, it was unprecedented, right? We lived in unprecedented times. Everything was unprecedented. This word became the motto of the era. So Google Trends is the perfect embodiment and showcase of how unprecedented the usage of unprecedented became. It multiplied. Everything was unprecedented, right? However, we needed to find an anchor point to keep saying. And what helped us really is to realize that we just need to focus on what stayed the same, both for ALDI, because there are so many unknowns, and both for us to be able to get through this period and write these papers and hopefully write them well enough to be recognized. When it came to ALDI, it was a much easier job, actually, at least finding what remained the same than when it came to our own case, because ALDI didn't change their low prices. Their low prices stayed exactly the same as it's always been, which you couldn't say about our competitors. This was a very interesting phenomenon because, there was always, as we talked you through, there was always a bit of a, value game of who's better price, where am I going to get the biggest savings? COVID showed it black and white that ALDI is significantly offers you much better savings. What happened is Coles and Woolies, because of the operational challenges, they had to cancel their weekly specials. But what that resulted in is they became really expensive, and so expensive indeed that the media as well as shoppers picked up on it, and it flooded the news as well as social media. But what was quite interesting is that people also picked up that ALDI hasn't changed their prices. So it's one example, and one of our shoppers says, ALDI, congratulations ALDI on keeping your prices stable during COVID. Others are going, I'm a devotee. So this was a perfect storm, as you can imagine, for a challenger brand. So we had to just latch onto it and make the most of it. So we had 3 weeks from client brief to putting on air the ad that you're about to see. And yes, it did involve a chopper during lockdown.
We're coming to you live from the scene. Tell us what you've got there. Toilet paper? Nah, just dinner stuff. Right. You must have paid an unprecedented price for that during these unprecedented times. Nah, they're from ALDI. Prices are always low. Let's just go.
Whatever happens, our low prices are here to stay. Aldi, good, different.
So as you can imagine, this actually resonated a lot with both shoppers and non-shoppers, and we managed to gain back quite a bit of market share and get our shoppers back from the competition. So while Aldi was doing quite well and that both was going, our world and the Effies were not going well at that point. And we really had to remind ourselves what stayed the same. And the fact is that challenging times reminded us that Aldi and BMF pull together when it matters the most. So this Aldi and BMF have been working together for 18, I think almost 19 years. And you know, while it's only the two of us talking to you guys today, there's a huge undertaking and a huge team behind every Effie paper, as you guys who are writing them, you would all know as well. So these are some of the lovely people who helped us push through this quite challenging period. And, you know, both in terms of from BMF side, but also client side. So Hannah, Mark and Inez have been absolute legends and helping us day and night collate the results and finesse the paper to get to the final shape that was awarded the Grand Effie. And you know, we're not gonna lie, it wasn't a walk in the park. It's you know, except for that the daily exercise that we were allowed to do, but that was pretty much it. But we made it. And I think when we look back and we talk about this period, even just putting together this presentation took us back to that time. What really helps us to keep sane is some incredible sidekicks. So now we can officially say that behind every great Effie paper, there are some great sidekicks who keep us sane.
So I guess, you know, each one of these adventures had their own successes and their own challenges that they were taking on. But the sort of the grand romp that has been Good Different for the past three years has resulted in some pretty amazing brand and business successes for us and for Aldi, which we're really, really proud of. So Aldi is quite a private company and I can't obviously share any hard results with you guys, but I'll just paint a little bit of a picture of some of the successes that this campaign has allowed us to achieve over the past couple of years. So first and foremost is, you know, a business shaping long idea. So this is Tom Daunt here, who's the CEO of Aldi. And when we first launched the platform, he came out and said, you know, Good Different isn't just a new tagline for Aldi Australia. It's our way of summing up our company philosophy and our approach to all aspects of the business. I think that truly is testament to a long idea that's built from the inside out from a company. And obviously it led itself through to all the above the line consumer comms that you guys have seen today, but also filtered its way throughout the business, you know, internal communications, CSR. It's sort of definitely become a heartland and a center point for the business, which we're incredibly proud of helping Aldi to achieve that and to create that. Second, I think, you know, to become Australia's most trusted brand as a German supermarket is no mean feat at all, particularly when, you know, we've only been in the market for just now 20 years and Coles and Woolworths have been around for 100 years and, you know, synonymous with being Australian. So in 2018, which was the second year of Good Different, we actually came out as the #1 brand in Australia on top of Bunnings and Qantas, the ABC. So that was pretty phenomenal. But then the fact that Good Different has helped us remain as the most trusted supermarket in Australia above Coles and Woolworths in 2019 and in 2020 as well, it is, you know, definitely an accolade that we're very proud of. Third, I guess we need to obviously talk about business results, because at the end of the day, that's what we're all here as planners to do, is to help make work as effective as possible. And, you know, sloth, I guess, hit in that sort of orange period that you guys can see on the left. And then introducing Good Different in 2017 has definitely reversed the tide. So this is sales per store per week compared to the year ago. And you can just see how immense the growth has become since Good Different has come on air, and sort of the leaps and bounds that we're making each and every year that we have this platform live and work that sits underneath it. And I guess testament to that is how highly awarded all of the Good Different work over these past 3 years has been. So as a team, we have over 70 effectiveness, creative and team awards, including the 2 Grand Effies that we won this year for APAC, and also obviously the one in Australia. So this case study that you guys are seeing today. And I think the one that we're most proud of is Aldi actually getting Effective Advertiser of the Year 3 years in a row, which I think is unprecedented in of itself, but it's just a testament to the amazing client that they are, which I guess takes us to the 5th and probably the most important, you know, fruit of our labor, which is the amazing team that sits behind all of this work. So, you know, everyone from amazing, you know, brave, intelligent, smart, funny clients and creatives and suits, and the amazing array of planners that have worked on Good Different over the past 3 years. It's been absolutely incredible. So I think, great work, great brands, they attract great people, and that's definitely the case for us. And I think the biggest reward for us is being able to work with these people every day and make great work that works, which is amazing. So I guess the biggest question is, are we there yet? Are we a legitimate supermarket in Australia? I think we've made a lot of headway, but 2021 has its own challenges, for businesses, brands, companies, for all of us to face as well. So I think it's definitely just the beginning, but having Good Different as a platform has definitely sort of set us up for hopefully to take on the challenges that 2021 has for us in store. So thanks, and thanks for listening, guys.
To be continued.
Thank you so much, Rob, Kelly, and Kinga. I absolutely adore the campaign. Congratulations, BMF. It's one of the ones I am most envious of, and it's such a brave piece of work right from the beginning. Right, the Good Different platform is in of itself a brave, creative, conceptual thought, and then to carry that through everything that you've done in terms of advertising, communication, and behaviours is just is breathtaking. So well done. Could you I'll just kick off with a question to start, if I may, Steve, is that all right?
Yeah, go.
Could you talk a little bit about the relationship with the client and with internal teams that made this creativity and bravery possible? You talk a little bit about the way of working and the ingredients of the success and how that bravery and creativity was made possible.
Yeah, I think to Kinga's point earlier, that sort of 18-year partnership is obviously one that's built over time. Trust is very easy to lose, but it takes years to gain. And I think that bedrock has been really, really important for us. But I think we work incredibly closely with ALDI as clients. We have weekly whips with them from a strategy point of view, also from a client point of view. We're definitely an extension of their marketing team, and we lean on each other as much as I think is possible in this sort of client relationship. So I think that it's definitely that trust and that's been built over time, and obviously that has consecutively delivered results, I think, which has enabled them to, buy even braver work as the Good Different platform sort of unfolded as well.
And I think just to add to that also, they look at us as business partners. So that's a massive difference. They don't brief us on campaigns. They have a philosophy of if we win, you win. Therefore, we have our skin in the game. So every agency that works with them, we are responsible essentially for business results with them. So that makes, I think, the partnership even more powerful, because that allows for very healthy discussions of what would help us deliver those results.
Wonderful. And then
thanks, guys. And I'd just like to prompt everyone out there, if you do have a question, just use the Q&A icon down the bottom of your screen to type it up, and between Lindsay and ourselves we can moderate and get those questions through to Kelly and Kinga. But while we're waiting for some more questions to come through, we've got a few coming in. Just a really basic question: is this positioning different to the overseas operation?
Yes, it is. So in each of their countries, if you think about it, well, it's one brand, but each market has its own challenges. So therefore, they need to position ALDI depending on their competitor set, as well as consumer behavior and preference. Fortunately, Australians are fun-loving people, so that's why we could have a bit of fun with our positioning.
Great. Charlie has a question. Were there any key moments, especially in the unprecedented last year, when the client's confidence wavered, namely in investing more rather than pulling back?
Absolutely. I think every single client had that, or every single marketing team, every single agency had this discussion with their clients. What really helped us to do, first of all, this trust that we talked about, and simplicity. So ALDI, I think it's a phenomenal client because they force us and bring us back to succinctness at all times, and simplify. And if we thought about, in this case, the reason why we had to go live so fast, because there was a golden opportunity. We had a brand truth, there was a clear customer need, and our competitors created a window of opportunity for us.
Totally. And I think Mark as well, as the CMO, what was obviously with all the operational challenges that were going on, stockpiling and everything else that was going in store, ALDI had to get their house in order. They had to make sure that we had enough toilet paper, that the doors were open, that the stores were clean. But the second that was cemented and the business was on solid ground again, it was his first priority to make sure that we reacted and got something on air and pushed that through the business. So I think marketing internally as well as the agency was so important in making sure that we didn't go dark, because we all know that that's definitely the wrong thing to do in a situation like this.
Yeah. For that, another question just in. This one's for you, Rob. Aldi is constantly outspent by Coles and Woolies. So does this mean that great creativity can overcome a lack of excess share of voice?
Certainly helps. At the end of the day, I mean, it's like creativity. I think, that's the special sauce, really. At the end of the day, if everything's the same, then spending more would get you above it. But yeah, I mean, it's like if you're overspending and you're highly creative, boom. If you're, underspending and you're still highly creative, then the chances are that you're going to catch up. And there's kind of relative as well, So yeah, absolutely. Like everything that I see with the work that I do and discussions with Peter is, that's the special sauce. It's the differentiator, I think, and it's one of those reasons why we must never give up on creating something brilliant. I think at the end of the day, like if you play to the averages and stick in the margins, then that's where you're going to be.
And just a follow-up question to that before Lindsay asks the next question. But does excess share of voice change depending on company size? If you're a new entrant or a challenger brand like Aldi, does your excess share of voice change with respect to your competitors?
I think it's all relative, right? So if you have a 1% market share and you have a 1% share of voice, then your ESOV basically is neutral. So it's about understanding or your intensity relative to your size. So do you need to invest more as you grow? Yes, you do. As you're bigger, it's really, I hate to use the word kind of shouting, but there's lots of voices out there in ad land, and we talk about within our category, but really your advertisers competing against everything that people are seeing out there, which is why the intensity with which you do it is important. Coupled with creativity, that's where you're in the position that you really need to be in. But yeah, it would need to scale as the business grows, as in advertising budget. You may keep the same positive ESOB number, but investment would need to scale appropriately.
Emma has a question. She saw that you used an insight in the stimulus for the advertising, but questions, was it infused and used all the way through the production so that you could sort of test and learn along the way?
Which insight was that in particular, sorry?
I don't know, Emma, maybe you could just type in a little bit of detail. While Emma's doing that, I might ask you a different question.
Yeah.
Here's a curly one. When you obviously set up the platform, it was, a highly, big breakthrough strategic thinking that led you to that platform. How do you keep it interesting strategically as it is creatively? Obviously, it's a highly creative brand that, with a really distinctive and creative tone of voice. How do you keep it interesting strategically as well as creatively within the agency?
I think we're kind of blessed and cursed with the category that we're in. Like there's just so many challenges and curveballs that jump out of you out of nowhere constantly. So I think like the biggest thing for us is just strategically what's the best opportunity to go after next, and there's always something, there's always actually probably 10 or 20 that we could choose from. So it's about knowing which one's going to deliver the biggest business results for us, which one is true to us as a brand. And then good different more than anything just becomes the guiding light on how we actually tackle that. So everything that we do, it needs to be about how we're good different and how that can help us overcome the challenges that we're facing. But yeah, we're definitely not bereft of strategic opportunity to put it to work, for sure.
Yeah, and especially just the sheer fact that we are number 3 in the market, right? So there's just so much room to grow. So if you think about it, that's our starting point, that we have an incredible guiding light that has been put through, I think, especially this year. Fire, it was the test of fire this year, and it helped us immensely. Plus we have so much room to grow and a brave client. When you have a combination of that, really the opportunities are endless. So we, most often than not, the question is, what do we do out of all of these opportunities, and what is that one focus that we go after?
Thanks, guys. And just to follow up to that question before from Emma around insight. Each stage of this journey that you're on with Aldi, most campaigns are really centered around a particular insight. So Emma's question was then, as you move into production of a campaign, are you then rechecking as the creative comes to life back around the insight to ensure that it's infused in every stage of that production process, campaign production process?
Can't give away a secret. We actually had something completely different planned before COVID. Yeah, we had a full campaign ready to go live, like literally 2 or 3 days.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Before launch day, COVID. Yeah, like everything was ready to roll, and then COVID hit, and we were like, "Is this? I mean, how serious is this gonna be?" And then after 1 week, actually after 2 days, we realized that okay, we need to pull the whole thing. Yeah. So that's how much we are. We have to be in tune. I think what's really powerful about retail, especially supermarkets, that it's not an abstract category. It's built into, it has cultural currency, it's built into people's lives every day, what they're experiencing, and therefore you need to constantly be attuned to that.
Well, thanks for that. And Emma, I hope that's answered your question. Over to you, Lindsay, for the next one.
Sorry. A question from Diane around, he said, thank you, really enlightening presentation. In terms of the insights uncovered in research, are these validated through quant or simply just uncovered in qual? So I guess the question around role of qual and quant research within the process.
We do quite a lot of research with ALDI. I mean, I think probably the Goldilocks amount, right? Like you can have too much data and you can get inundated with it. And we don't have a loyalty reward scheme, so we don't have personalized data. Like the amount of data that we have is quite different. But what that does mean is that we are very pointed in the challenges that we need to identify and what we do go after. So we're quite lucky. We've been doing a program called Report to the Shopper, which is an ongoing qualitative read every quarter around what's happening in the market, consumer landscape, which helps to feed into these briefs. But that's definitely backed by quantitative research as well behind it. And obviously ongoing brand tracking as well feeds into it, and sort of, market analysis. So it's definitely a perfect pairing of the two. That gets us to where we are.
And to be honest, we have to give a massive shout out to our the ALDI Insights team, who are phenomenal. So Hannah, Ines, Susan, thank you. Yeah. Because I think they are massive advocates of research within ALDI as well. So even just the insights and the importance of insights and how we're able to influence the business through both quant and qual has been very much latched onto by the business.
Totally.
Cool. There's a great question just in from Gil, and one that I'd been thinking about myself. With all your success with ALDI, I guess they're going to get to a point where they're not necessarily different anymore. So the question there is, once you're potentially on a level playing field with Coles and Woolies, will you continue with that good different option, or how do you see it progressing if you eventually get to parity with Coles and Woolies? What do you think this will mean for the brand?
Look, I think, one day, hopefully, we will get to parity from a market share point of view. But I think back to the point around good different being built from the inside out of the business, I think we will never be the same as Coles or Woolworths because of the way that ALDI is set up. It's their entire business structure. It's the way that they buy products. It's their ranging on their shelves. It's their store design. Everything about the ALDI business model is different from Coles and Woolworths. So I think good different is here to stay because it's built from that brand truth. And it's definitely, hopefully, the tool to get us to parity. But it will be a tool, I think, that will then help us continue to grow rather than be swapped out for sort of the next new fad, because it's inherent to who they are as a brand and a business.
Okay, so as a follow-up question, you've explained you've gone from unknown different to good different. What will the next different be?
I think there's still plenty of work to be done on good different. You would be surprised how many like nuggets of insights or like truth there is about ALDI, that when we are at focus groups, the still people go, oh, no way. And that's, those, I think for us, the big moments when we realize, oh my God, we need to talk about this a lot more. This is what the campaign needs to be about. If even within a focus group, people are so surprised to hear certain nuggets. For example, we have an incredible amount of the stock in our store actually comes from Australia. People don't know that. They always get really surprised about that. So, and this is just one example. There are plenty more. that gets people excited and surprised.
Okay, we might wrap it there. I know we're a little minute over, but I would just like to thank everyone so much for joining us. Big thank you to Rob for your sneak peeks of your great findings, to Steve and Think TV for the sponsorship and support of the Advertising Council's initiative to I guess, shine a light on effectiveness and the role of effectiveness in the industry. And to Kelly and to Kinga, thank you so much. It's such a beautiful case study in the role and power of creativity and driving effectiveness. And congratulations on the Grand Effie.
Thank you so much.
Effies, plural, sorry. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.